Hello, welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shailendra and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I hope you and your family is safe. For you to view this episode and other sessions that are on emerging technologies live, I would request you to follow me so that you can be alerted when a live session is on. This gives you an opportunity to directly ask questions to our guests. So please press the follow button on LinkedIn if you're watching on LinkedIn. Press the follow button on Twitter if you're watching on Twitter. On YouTube, press the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you get an alert when a live session or a video is uploaded. For maximum reach of this episode so that we learn from Mark and our guests, please like this particular video so more and more people can get access to this video. So please press the like button, whichever platform you're watching this on. Okay, let's start. Enterprises across industries are undergoing a profound and lasting shift in the relative balance of AI adoption. AI applications will offer each enterprise as many opportunities as it does challenges. While access to technology, data, and information is common to all enterprises, what is not common is how each enterprise uses that information, and for that reason. While AI has given enterprises across industries and nations the same starting point in access to AI technologies, it is crucial to understand the parameters that will define their individual and excessive success. Now, it's very important to see that AI, which has been only used to create products, is also, that we don't know that it's also being used behind the scene in enterprises to make smart processes. So let's talk about enterprise AI and how AI is being used within the enterprises. So before I go there, one question to you all: are you watching this live or are you watching this a replay? Please let us know so that let us know in the comments so we get a good idea of where you're watching. So welcome to the 6th episode of Artificial Intelligence Startup Insight. In this series, we discuss both about artificial intelligence, how startups are leading this space. We are joined by Marc Teerlink, who is SAP's Global Vice President for Intelligent Enterprise and Artificial Intelligence. Mark is active in the startup community as an angel investor, mentor, and a board member as well. So much more importance for Mark to be here. So without any further ado, let me bring in Mark to the show. Mark. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's early in the morning here in Western Europe. The sun hasn't even come up yet, so that's the time of year. But looking forward to the show today.
Good stuff. Thank you for your time, Mark. Always, it's been a pleasure, and I feel so happy that you wake up early in the morning to come join us and have a conversation. It's too early for you, but you are there every time without fail.
Well, the show is fun, so it makes it worth it.
Okay, Mark, let's talk about enterprise AI. How enterprises are embracing AI within their internal processes is what comes to mind, because we've talked about products, we've talked about how go-to-market is happening, but what's happening within the enterprises? Let's talk about that today.
So what's happening within the enterprises? Three things are happening, and those are the most mundane, boring, repetitive tasks that a knowledge worker or professional could have. If you are an accountant, you did 4 years of college, 3 years of specialization, you got your certification, and then you sit there 3 days a week, 3 days of your 5 days, with a team in your admin department to do invoice reconciliation. So you go to all the payments and you go to all the spreadsheets and you come to the conclusion, this person owes us money. This person has paid part of this invoice. And then you need to figure out as a company what happened, why didn't they pay that amount, etc., etc. So we see invoice reconciliation, we see contract comparing, we see little tasks that are taking an incredible amount of time, but actually take little human skills. They'll be used by AI as repetitive processes. Now, the backbone of a company has a lot of administrative processes. So, as I said, you have take one task out of a financial process, take it out of a logistics, make a picture of a part and basically find it back in the catalog so you can do an order. Those are the first thing where we saw AI. Now, the second thing where we saw AI was basically in augmenting the human, not just in knowledge, but in interaction, that make the picture instead of typing in, finding the part number, is a second example. And then we surely saw voice. I mean, we seen this with companies like Office Depot that actually brought this to other enterprises. So as an office manager or as an employee, you could stand at a copy machine and say, order more toner. And then basically the AI knew what is the toner you use, what is the toner you use at this location at the office, and order it. Now we go to the third part. This is going to be hard for some people that are on ERPs. There used to be a time that consultants made an incredible amount of money just by customizing software, customizing ERP, which is a little bit weird because whether it is SAP or other solutions, whether they're ERP or CRM, a software manufacturer starts by taking the best of all industries and put it as a standard in the process. Now, the larger company is, like SAP, for instance, the more they actually set the standard for processes. So multiple companies can directly exchange their invoices, exchange their orders, have one pool of data that they share in one cloud where they have their common contracts, etc. So we've come to the point that most enterprises have come to the conclusion that it's better to take a vanilla piece of software and only customize those things that are absolutely unique for you. Very good example is Royal Dutch Shell that 1.5 years ago took 7 or 8 of their customized SAP systems, made them into one SAP system. And this is not about the ERP, this is about the customization effort, and said what is for us unique. Our exploration is unique, the way we do some downstream and upstream, and the rest is pretty vanilla. But the real secret sauce, Shelley, as you know with your background, the real secret sauce is the data. So my boardroom discussions in enterprise are mostly like, stop customizing your stuff. You're not so unique. You're special like everybody else. Your data and your analytics are the secret sauce. So coming back to your question, where do we use AI in enterprise? We slowly now see AI doing the heavy lifting in analytics. You know, the moment that you have to take data out of multiple sources, and then you're like, oh, this is an American date format. This is a European date format. This is in dollars. This is all those things where we used to do hardwired rules in ETL. And every time there was like these 10, 15% that are data, which was clean at its source, but by integration got dirty, because our ETL and the way we extracted and transformed and loaded our data wasn't. So this is where a smart, intelligent AI comes in that basically recognizes, what is this date format? What is this? So if I get 5 files that, for instance, have cities and 1 file that has states, then automatically it spots the missing part and makes sure that with those cities, the most likely matching state comes in, or it is with a state with a question mark. Now, mostly we also know where our offices is or sales region, so we can already do a lot. Then you go to, and this is my excitement for today, we've had some customers that brought external data. We had some startups that brought external data in the show. We had some companies that did B2B2C, like last week with VitusVet. But now today we're going to talk about the enterprise and enterprise analytics. And do you remember, Shelley, that scene in Minority Report where Tom Cruise stands with his hands and I mean, that is the dream for every data scientist, data analyst, like take the data's crunch. The reality is all these hand gestures look great in the movie. It's really hard. What is much better is your voice. Many people don't know there's a pivot table function in Excel. So they start literally cut and paste and turn their table around. But it's so much better if you could just say, or at least type, turn this into the pivot table, sort this by country, sort this by state. Because, you know, again, in our analysis, it's all those, how do I filter this in Excel? Oh, my sort now has been screwed up. I need to get 2 steps back. All these slicing and dicing, that's really, really, really the hardest part. So while we started with pure process support, we now see AI entering analytics support, and from analytics support it becoming insight support. So we talk, and when we have our guest Saurabh there, this is going to be one of my favorite topics to discuss. We slowly have something they call the citizen data scientist. 2 years ago, I had the pleasure to be with Erik Markede from SAP and Richard Mooney from SAP on a podcast, radio podcasts. And in that radio show, we discussed about what we call the rise of the citizen data scientist. And people had like, what? And like, there is something that you used to do business intelligence, and you suddenly get data scientist tooling. Doesn't make you data scientist. And again, Shelley, our favorite joke, causality is not correlation. And however, we do see that the last years with the new tooling and education and a new generation of young professionals inspiring us and seasoned professionals correcting those who don't, that we have come to a situation that we do not necessarily need a PhD for every data science project. In fact, with some tools, you can do the 80-20, like do a lot of the standard crunching and slicing, make more dynamic reporting instead of just cutting and pasting Excels. I mean, Excels are like rabbits, right? Today you have 2, tomorrow you have 43. Nobody knows what the version of the truth is anymore. So you have to go back to the original data. What if you now would be able to use an Excel plus and use language? What if you now had a tool that did this, pull the data off and standardized and harmonized the data just by you giving it instructions, and it translated those words into actions, right? This is where we're looking for in analytics, and we see different kind of players. When I was at IBM Watson, we started with a product called Watson Analytics, and I think the product itself, Neo, was phenomenal, and we were too far ahead of our time, right? You went to people that use Cognos or business objects and Tableau and Click, and it's like, no, I can just swipe this. And like, you haven't seen the real problem yet. The real problem is, if you want to take these 5 dashboards, you want to create insight, how do you do that? Are you going to do the heavy lifting, or are you going to have a little agent helper that does it for you, right? Mm-hmm. That's the era where we're now entering, from AI in the operational back office processes, AI in the front end office processes in interacting with our clients and assisting us, to AI in the insight part. That is basically the real excitement, what we're entering now in the 2020s.
Okay, good stuff. That also brings a question to you, and you mentioned about the citizen data scientist. I think, and even before that, when we're talking about the Minority Report and how data would come together, my question is, if the data format is different, how do you actually bring that together? Which is a point that comes to mind all the time, that interface-wise, okay, you can still go ahead and do something, but at back end, how will that work? And possibly I'm thinking too structured. Maybe there is an opportunity where everything becomes unstructured and fluid, and so they could join, or they could, link by itself, and that could be a possibility. I don't know where we're going in the future. And I think our guest is doing something kind of similar, and it'll be an opportunity to get him on the table to understand what he's thinking and how he's taking it to the next level. Before I go to introducing our guest, I've got another question for you, Marc. Marc, we talked about those 7 building blocks of AI, and we always talk about that. Mm-hmm. Any example that you want to discuss about how any one of the components, for example, NLP or machine learning, is being taken or utilized by an enterprise to create a certain outcome? So we did talk about cash flows or spend management, and we talk about converting data, voice to text. What are the key benefits or key areas that enterprises are utilizing for an internal AI applications? What do you see?
So a lot of are doing what you call operational process automation, right? So they focus on reducing cost by taking elements out of a process. The interesting thing that we saw in COVID is that more successful companies realized that they could take some cost or add efficiency to the operations. But the reality is agility and flexibility is what they needed most. Now, this is where machine learning comes in. If you have some hardwired rules and realities change, COVID was basically a business system interrupt. You need flexibility. So if you are a retailer and you do automatically replenishment and you use your hardwired rules or even some AI to replenish your store every time, and suddenly your supply chain is totally abruptly changed, and people get mass hysteria in buying toilet paper, you don't want your automatic replenishment system to tomorrow have 3 times the amount of toilet paper in your store, because people are saturated at some moment. Plus, your supply doesn't work anymore. Now, then we saw that companies that actually used machine learning, some changing in their rapid changes of the AI, so their robotic process automation could change or take other orders and flows. They built this agility with the intent to create resilience. And I hate using these buzzwords, but what do you call it? Agility, being more flexible, being more nimble, and doing some sustainable, some resilience, that when COVID has passed, the sooner the better, something else might happen. We might in Europe have a strike of fishermen in the English Channel, which stops the harbors of Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Hamburg to get their normal stuff in. We might have a chicken flu outbreak, which stops a lot of our roads around in the country. So we'll always have some crisis. So the best one-liner I can give you that happened with AI is a lot of companies realize you shouldn't waste a good crisis. This is the moment to experiment with machine learning and with robotic process automation as part of AI to see if I could change some of the order of my processes, or even use this efficiency part to create value, or just to get my best people available in the human process, because that's where they were most needed.
Yep. And then I think, to your point, one of my clients a few years ago said that I want to free up my people who I pay hundreds and thousands of dollars to think about doing business than just doing mundane one process, which is repetitive and can be done by a system or a particular environment or a computer. So I think you're absolutely right. Things are changing in that fashion. Okay, now moving on to startups. How are startups creating products which are specially for enterprises? So do you see any kind of products that are being created focusing on enterprises internally changing their processes? So I said to you that there are two things. One is the products that you create for mass consumption, and then there are products or ideas that are used within the enterprise to optimize their processes. So do you see any one or two, or if you can give an example of one or two such processes or such products that are being used by that are being created by startups for large enterprises?
Right. Well, first is we've seen, I just mentioned robotic process automation. We've seen several startup companies making what I call intelligent RPA, which is an upcoming and growing market. SAP itself had been heavily invested in it. And even so, we acquired a company to integrate in our solution. We see, what I find interesting is development platforms. So using AI for a data manipulation platform for creating Kubernetes containers, etc. So all the stuff you manual would have to do in Python and in Jupyter Notebook and Anaconda in managing all your models and the thing. It's the second thing. So really workflow and product lifetime management is what we see. Then we see that there are companies that are creating what I call plug-in, wedges, whatever you want to call them, things that are on the market that can be inserted in, you name them, Oracle, Salesforce, SAP, Siebel, for instance. Like, for instance, doing a credit check. Go out of the system, do a credit check for this person, comes back with the most likely name, make the connection, give me potential free best scores or free best matches, right? That's not something that a lot of systems have built in them. So if you build an AI, the core differentiation, if you build an AI for enterprise, either you must be able to integrate match, pair with the core infrastructure that an enterprise already has on spot.
Mhm.
Two, your added value if you can bring external data that then within the firewall can be matched, maybe even within the normal app of that enterprise. And the more you can do something that is not in that product and not likely to come rapidly in that product, right? Think about OS X, when every time in the older days we had a hack version or a legal app, and then Apple said, "Oh, that's so good. We got to do that in the next version of OS X," and back it was gone. So your content is unique. Your trained AI is unique. That's really where you have a time advantage over any other player that needs to create and retrain that. But also sometimes we want an agnostic tool, a tool that would work with multiple parts of our infrastructure as well. And this is always like we should really focus on what our core is. Well, this is the same for a large software supplier. Should you really, really go in a direction, if it's outside your core, then it's a new market? Or are you better off in partnering with? Now, we have seen different industries in the past. One of the other parts that I see is basically data science tooling and data science tooling out of the box. They're slowly replacing some of the more traditional BI tools slowly, where we're seeing that is a very good example where analytics is not replaced, but extended. Now, we also see some new players coming up, which I think for the traditionals, the Tableaus and the Clicks of this world are going to be serious challengers. And this is not just my word, this is also where the analysts are coming from. And the third is pure productivity tools. So not so much the tooling for yourself or for your enterprise, but the tooling of the employee. It's a little bit like in the old days when you suddenly had a calculator. It wasn't connected to the IT system, but man, it helped you much faster to interact with it. And we see these things as well. And very good examples are Box or Dropbox that used to be standalone tools, and now suddenly we can use them to collaborate, to connect. And we see suddenly that Box and Dropbox starting having AI support. Box, for instance, and will compare internal documents, not just in a Word point of view, but in like how much have they changed, what is the content thing, who has touched it. So we get a sort of meta layer in those tooling that help us to be stronger. So summarizing, widgets, extensions, external data inserts, unique propositions, or employee productivity tooling.
So what you said was absolutely, when I started, so 20 years ago when I was doing some kind of coding, I remember versioning was a very important thing. Imagine in today's world, everything is being versioned. So for example, if you look at Dropbox, if there is a change, you get to know there is a change and so forth. So versioning has become so easy and with the advent of comparing documents or comparing code from one code to another, and it's become very, very optimal. One thing that comes to mind before I bring in our guest is voice. How important is voice going to be in the coming days? So we have been interacting with the computer or with the system through keyboards. We have now got the functionality of a camera, and we do talk to computers as well. So how do you see that internally changing? For example, would you be dictating to the computer at some point in time so that they can take some notes? Just that's a very simple one. I'm sure.
I'm still trying that for years. And it's getting better and better and better. And it's definitely for people that like to think loud, phenomenal. But the biggest challenge is what I call context. So one statement is great. But a really good example is you go to Google and you say, "Who's Marc Teerlink?" And you get bang, this amount of Marc Teerlink. And then you say, "What's his height?" And Google start telling you what height means and how it is, and can't even make the connection to the previous question, right? So it is the input of one is the output of one. That's really where the challenge is for voice is. So conversational AI instead of just NLP parsing, that's where the challenge is. Now, back to your question. Yeah, we see that. Like if you are a mechanic or a field engineer, and you have like two hands going around in a piece of machinery, it's really nice to have like, hey Google, hey Siri, you know, which wire attaches this part to the plus pole, you know, like whatever. I mean, I'm not an engineer that way, so I couldn't really do that.
Okay, I found this on the web for which way iPod touches this.
And it's good that you just hear Siri giving me a recommendation as well. So, but it's so
I'll tell you a different one. I think I said this in a couple of one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago. It was around I telling Google names of my daughters and their birthdays, and then I asked them what's the age of one of my daughters, and it doesn't know. I just tell you.
It's you still have to hardwire it, the same as with Amazon's product or with Google's product. You still have to hardwire. Who am I? What is my family, etc. Right? And yeah, that's difficult. But the power is that purpose-trained AI, purpose-trained voice, purpose-trained NLP, whether it is voice, because you have two things, right? You have like voice to text and text to voice. That's one, and meaning what did you say? What did I hear? You know, rightness is right now is a really hard. If you want to try a voice parser, you do rightness is right now with 10 people and 10 non-native speakers, right? Then you see how good the parser is. But then you have the second part. Once it is text, you have the NLP part, and that starts taking it. And the NLP part basically needs to understand that when we were at Watson, we had the famous I dreamt I shot an elephant wearing my pajamas. Well, was the elephant in my pajamas? Was it wearing my pajamas? Was I wearing my pajamas? Right? All this contextual part in the NLP has to come for the sentences before or after to understand what it means. So the better your conversational AI, the better actually your parsing of both your voice to text and your text to command is going to be. But some commands are simple, and we can be trained to. Take the sales table, pivot it by region, right? That's not a difficult command to learn. I mean, if we can learn Excel formulas, hell, then it shouldn't be difficult to get a few commands that makes life easy. But back to voice, it really starts in the consumer's home. The moment we have devices that, hey, Google, open my curtains, hey, Google, dim the lights, and we figure out how to make scenes, like I'm home, and then bang, curtains close, music plays, right? 10, 15 things happen at the same time. Then we have understood as consumers how to make a scene or actually macro a series of commands. And that is where enterprises are going with voice. I say one thing, but a lot of things happen at the same time.
Okay, perfect. Voice sets the scene for our next guest, and he's someone who's been playing with voice for a long time. I know him. I met him at Gartner 2.5 years ago it was, and since then I've been talking to him for a while. So let me bring him in. But before I bring him in, everyone who's watching this show, if you've got a question for Marc or our guest, please mention that in the comment section, and I'll definitely take that question for sure, and I'll put that to Marc and our guest. So bringing in our guest in, an entrepreneur by choice, Saurabh Moody, as he's called, voice man also, and we'll ask him why. He laid the foundation of his first company, which was in software as a service, a business analytics company in 2008, and did a turnover of more than $1 million in the first year of its operation, which was quite huge. And imagine if he was working in India, that was a lot of money in those days. In 2004, he worked with Microsoft, designed and implemented the core platform framework for Microsoft Passport. Saurabh has won several national accolades for technology innovations, including NASSCOM, which is Indian government's technology place, Emerge 50, out to solve the problem of making data available for every business user using NLP or natural language. Saurabh is currently democratizing data by building world's first AI analyst platform, Alpha AI. So without any further ado, let me bring in Saurabh Moody, CEO, Alpha AI. Hi, Saurabh. Welcome to the AI Insight series. How are you doing? Ah,
Mark,
you're
good to
muted.
see you.
Good
Can you hear
stuff.
me?
How you doing? So first of
I'm
all,
great.
why do you call yourself voice man? What's that about?
So basically, what happened is in the beginning of while me and Preksha were building Alpha, one of the days I was coding something. We were back after a demo, so we went to one of the biggest automobile, and we gave a demo with Alexa. Okay, with a lot of hope. We were just a simple dashboarding company, and we go inside, and they were Japanese, so they told me how to greet him, how to meet him, and all those things, and how the demo has to be given. We go inside and we ask Alexa how many I say like how many renewals we did last month. And we have already practiced this question, Mark and Shelley, for more than 10-20 times. Okay, we knew that it was this was the question which was hard coded and was working. We go inside, we set up Alexa. You'll not believe, I asked that question 6 to 9 times, and Alexa said, I didn't understand. Can you repeat it? Can you tell me what the question is? All 9 times it was not able to answer even once. And just before his office, like just 10 feet away, 10 feet away, we and the head of technology, we all tested it. And that was one of the most embarrassing moment for someone like me who always have had fantasies about technology since like very. I was just 13 years old, and I was thinking about building the, as Mark said, the Mission Impossible kind of screens and the gesture. Not many people know, Mark. I did a multi-touch screen 10 years ago, the entire hardware, like a full-blown table where you can do multi-touch in order to replicate that thing. Because I used to always feel people can always design application, but if the human computing interface is not done right, it will be of no use. So experience was everything. So just now, so we came back and I started building my own stuff. I said, okay, I don't care for Alexa. I'm going to build it all by my own. And while I was building it, Preksha recorded a video of mine while I was building that voice as I was testing it. And when we posted that video on LinkedIn, that was our first video which went viral. Okay, and we realized that people are liking when they see a man interacting with a machine, and we as human can actually instruct machine. So that was that moment, and then we did couple of more videos, and then we realized, hey, we can do this thing. And that was the time we named ourselves Voice Man. And the funny part was I had one more person with me that point in time, Uday. We said, like, how do we stand out in LinkedIn? Okay, how do we tell people that what we do in one single line? So I did voice man, and Uday did voice man, and somebody else also did voice man. So we were three voice man. And the funny part, we have a female co-founder. So she said, like, what should I write? I said, like, sorry. So because it was like we were not very sure about, that's the story.
We are the voice man. You are the voice.
Yeah. You
Okay.
are the voice, and it's, really, like, today she is the voice.
Okay. So before I go and ask you the first question, Saurabh, just one thing for your benefit and the audience benefit. Preksha is the CMO and co-founder for Alpha AI. Um, okay. Um,
Correct.
Saurabh, tell us about Alpha AI for the benefit of the audience. What is Alpha AI and how does it work?
So before I even talk about Alpha AI, let me tell you a small story around, like, why Alpha AI. So what we realized is I started my career with Microsoft some 17 years ago, like good time ago. And after that, I've been building this BI tools and platforms for enterprises. And what I learned from that experience was that every time a business user needs anything in an enterprise, even a simple thing, he has to go ahead and talk to IT. Believe me, if someone who, like, one task people in enterprise hate, they really hate talking to IT. talking and taking help of others, right? Because these are business leaders today. So, am I visible, Shali?
Yeah, you were there. You were everywhere.
Great. Right. So I was saying, like, so what enterprises hate and the business user hate was they wanted to have access to this data, but they didn't want it to take any help. At the same time, they were not ready to learn also. Like, for example, if you open Excel, you can actually build very beautiful dashboards, which most of our Alpha A fellows I like to bring in, they have been building in past 4 weeks. Beautiful dashboards in Excel. But the process of doing everything in Excel is so cumbersome. So they are able to do the technical stuff, but they don't want to learn ever. So when I started to think about, if I see the big picture, what I was seeing that non-technical people or business users wants to do technical stuff. Okay, they've been trying to do it, but they want to do it right away, right now, all by themselves. How do we solve it? We say, let us go ahead and enable it. And we say, how do we enable them? If they don't want to learn anything, how do we enable them? If you want to have a car and you want to go from place A to place B and you don't want to learn driving, how do I enable you to get in the car? And that is where the thought of Teslas of the world and the self-driving cars comes into play. What I think in next 10 years, driving as a skill set will be obsolete. So I thought, what about when me and Preksha we were discussing, we thought like, can we make the whole technology deal go obsolete in 10 years, right? People should not be required to learn technology, and that is where the natural language interface came or emerged out as a winner. So if a natural language interface can understand what you really want, like you telling your daughter's birthday and asking age, very tough question. Mark asking about his height, super tough question. But I realized that the organization, their data and their questions are much more structured, right? They always have talked about like their dimensions and measures most of the time. So I said, okay, I'm not going to solve the entire world problem, but maybe since I'm an analyst and like how somebody asks me and I answer, I can train the entire system to be like me at the day one. And that is what laid the foundation of Alpha. So now Alpha is a technology which can understand your question, and without any kind of training, it can give you an answer on top of your data. So, hey Shelly, is it okay if can you share my screen? I was thinking, like, maybe just giving a very simple example, people might love it.
Yep, go on.
Okay. So if you see my screen right now for everyone, if I have a question like, who are our customers who are buying lot of phones in New York in last 12 months? Can you tell me what kind of revenues they are driving for us and the kind of profit we are making from them? Can you do a quadrant analysis on that? Now you see it's a pretty large, long question, right? It has got multiple. It is not as easy as say, who is the guy who is say chief evangelist of SAP and how many years he has spent in SAP, and then how do we correlate his years of experience and years in SAP, deriving to a fact that on an average at senior level people spend 5 to 8 years in SAP. Mark, how many years you are in SAP now?
2.5, 2.5.
So,
So,
2.5.
so
So you're still there.
Mark joined exactly 1 month after me. So we're right across the same time we joined.
People still call us the
Right.
new
So
hire.
one more. So now one thing which you saw in the demo was now the system capability to understand voice has improved a lot. Not only that, but systems ability to put this into a data text has also improved a lot. Just 5 seconds insight of this whole technology is built like how GPT and Google BERT works. The only difference on this technology is Alpha has built a recursive decoder. Okay, what a recursive decoder technology is, even implemented the transformer model means is it keeps on trying to understand what the long question means. So it keeps on understanding the fragments of questions one by one, and at the end it combines all the fragment. And I will not leave all the 800 million users dry and hanging in the world, because as I told you, right, nobody wants to learn new things. So what about if you go in something like Excel and you can ask a same question, how is our sales across category and subcategory? And also show me the segment level detail. Before I press enter, let me take an idea that what you think and what people who are watching think is going to happen right now if I press an enter. Will the system be able to actually understand this question? That is one. And what it is going to do. Mark, what do you think the system is going to do if I press enter? What is your default
Well,
expectation? Yeah,
normally
Shali.
I would say it makes a nice text string that it leaves there, right?
So my view is if it is Excel and there is nothing, press enter, it will leave that statement there, nothing more, nothing less.
Right, right.
Okay,
But
so let me
I
press enter
don't,
for
I don't
everyone
see
and see what happens. When I so as soon as I press enter, what the system did is system understood what kind of data is required. So it's first got you the data, okay, and then it's just also realized that once you have the data, the next step you would like to do a pivot table out of it. So it automatically figured out what column goes in where, and it designed the pivot table. Most of the time, it is correct because we understand the relationship between these KPIs internally. And after that, if you would like to create a chart, and the good part is it's not a hard coded chart, you can actually, you can interact with it. And now what you can also do is in Office itself, if you realize that, hey, this long bar, what is this? This says like it's consumer in phones. Now you don't need to wait for anybody to help you with anything. You can just ask, how is our monthly, say, phone sales across, say, region, state, and store clusters with profit and discount. So now you're going crazy with it, right? So that was the only demo, right? Just thank you, Shelly, for allowing me to share this screen. You can take off.
No, no, no. I want
So
something more from you before we get off that screen. I remember you showed me that you could also create insights while you were not only just
oh
producing
yeah.
data. Could you do that for me, please? That was very interesting, actually.
Yeah, what can Yeah, so what you can do is let me do this thing on the first one normally. So when you select these things, you click on the ideas, right? And what idea is doing is it is trying to find the blind spots in the data which are not typically visible. So it tells you that consumer is where you are able to see majority of your sales coming in, and we have got, say, phones coming in. Okay, because I picked the phone piece. Let me cut this piece, put it here. So now I've got two insights, which I'm going to take on my screens here. Okay, and I'm going to paste this piece. And as the next thing I asked about, which was the phone, I can again select and look out for anomalies in this, and let me see where the human comes in. So imagine if I'm a business user, I have not left my screen, and now I know that East is where I'm making a lot of profit. Okay, and one more thing, and I'm also able to see that West and East is giving a lot of discount. Let me put all of these things in action together, and that is where the real fun starts. So if I take a cut, come on my main screen, now you know that our data, which had no meaning just like a minute ago, it tells me that consumer is making a lot of sales in consumer phones we are driving, and phones we are making a lot of sales in. profit in the East, but we have given a lot of discount in the West. So immediately you can infer that the discounts which you are giving in West are not working for you because the sales in the West is still low. So as a marketing guy, what I would do is I'd like to go ahead and launch a new phone in the West. That is one thing in few months to increase the sales. As a sales guy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop giving discounts in the West. So these are two ways where we are able to do this thing, and we were able to achieve the entire piece without learning any new skill set. If you see, Mark, there were no, and Shelly, there were no complex formulas to be taken care of. There is not many things, but still, if you, I know like a lot of people are still that way. They really want to do this thing. You can still go ahead and do this thing. You can say profit by sales, because at the end of the day, it is our dear Excel. It is 44%, and I can drag and drop like we do in normal Excel. And the good part, what you see is the user experience. While I was designing this, I realized that my people will not know. If you notice, I haven't pressed any click or there is no button. Literally, you were able to achieve all of these things in the favorite tool. You were able to get the data without talking to anyone. You were able to get an insight as good as like, tell me what's new about it. Does that work, Shelly,
Okay.
for you?
Yeah, good. So I'm
Great.
taking off that screen now, and let's have a conversation. Okay, guys. Good stuff. So, guys, whosoever is watching this, if you've got any question for Mark or Saurabh, please mention that in the comment section, and I will definitely bring that up for you. Mark, Saurabh, you've talked about your journey. You've showed what you've got. Um, how did you did talk about how did you get started? Let's talk about the change in market. So when I started, it was all about BI, and we were talking about data, and then it became analytics with insights and everything. From Alpha AI perspective, how does Alpha AI move through that space? So do you still focus on getting the data right, or do you focus on getting the insights right? How does that work for you, Saurabh?
So if I understand your question correctly, so what we want everybody to hear the story about is like how we all started with what kind of product and where we are and how the product shaped up. So there are few perks of being a startup, right? Unlike a big company, which is one of the first perk is agility, right? I don't have four level of bosses to actually talk to or take a go ahead in our alpha environment, right? Hope there is okay. Don't learn anything out of this, okay? Specifically, Shelly and Ma, this is just for the startups, right? So one of the things what I learned was that a lot of startups spend a lot of time in making a perfect product, okay? And I always give an example. Today also, I hate Windows the way it works, despite I spent so many years at Microsoft, right? And it is never perfect, right? And still, it is the most important software in the world. If you try and look at a lot of softwares in the world, if except Google, they are not perfect at all. They always have some or the other thing, and they are evolving, but still they are selling. So if as a startup you go into the game of perfection, that is not a very, very good thing, because whatever you think might not be the right thing. When we built Alpha first time, okay, this is a very, very cool story, because what we did is, so after that embarrassing situation, we went ahead and we built the entire piece, and Alpha was running as a standalone app. So this is like some small team in a small sleepy town built something which they called Alpha, and they started showcasing it to people. And one of the biggest enterprise which has more than $80 billion of top line, right? They saw the technology and they say, hey, this looks so amazing. I was invited to their headquarters and they said, hey, let's do a pilot. And we went ahead and we used our small platform and we enabled it so that they can ask questions and answers. And this guy flies down to New York. In one of the meetings he was there and he was super excited. And he goes ahead and he shows our platform to everyone. And everyone and everybody just loves the platform. Super excited. He comes back to the headquarters, right? He invites us, he congratulates us. We were very happy. We were talking about the terms of how to sign the contract, what will happen come first, how much money and all. We're negotiating. It is $50,000 or $100,000. And then he says, so now all my Tableau reports, I can ask this question, right? All my guys can ask questions on the Tableau reports with this technology. I said, what is Tableau? He said, what do you mean? You don't know Tableau? How is it all running right now? The demos which I'm making people see, all my bosses, the C-level executives, I just seen the demo on what it is running. I said, your company gave me data in Excel files, which I used here, and I made it work. He said, so you are not connected to Tableau, and you're not using Tableau. I said, no, I don't know anything about it. He immediately calls the guy who commissioned the entire pilot, and he says, so who was interacting with him? He says, sir, somebody in my team. Okay, call him. So he comes in and he asks him, so how you guys are made it work, right? I just got to know from Saurabh it is not working on top of Tableau. This guy admits that it is working on Excel data, which he exported for the POCs to work. Otherwise, he have to go through sign a lot of contracts. He says, have you lost your mind? You are saying that more than 10,000 people who are currently using Tableau in my organization, I will throw away Tableau and give Alpha in their hands? This is what you're telling me? That this technology, we have to push away Tableau? I was thrown out of that office immediately, of course, with the guy, right? Because enterprises cannot go through that change. They were already so much sticked upon a software called Tableau, right? And they were not ready to move away from it because it was so hard. That change was so hard. And believe me, that one failure actually made the foundation of Alpha. So if you today also, I think it is there in my one of my LinkedIn headings. We said, okay, why the heck we are building the entire piece? What if we just sit on top of Tableau? Okay, let's not build anything. We are experts at natural language. And the day we sat on top of Tableau, Mark and Shalin, I'll tell you, our popularity went hundreds. Everybody in the world who was using Tableau suddenly started hearing about Alpha, and we became the AI analyst on top of Tableau. So why I was able to do this thing is I was able to.
Is that, sorry, let me pause you here. Is that only Tableau, or is that now you've become working on all the softwares that you could see? So it's not dependent on a, because if I was you, I would say, what Tableau? Get rid of that. Get rid of anything else. Get rid of Excel. I'll work on whatever you've got. I'll work on it.
Correct. It's a very interesting journey, and that is what I wanted to put for everyone to hear. It's the first time I'm telling to everyone, right? So if people have never heard on any other platform why Alpha is like this and how that amazing experience has been crafted. So after we stepped out, we said, okay, how we are going to build it, and we said, okay, let's do it on top of Tableau. We became a hero. Okay, we became a hero up to a level that we became one of the youngest partner of Tableau in the whole world. We were onboarded in less than 3 months while we were 3 months old. No company gets a partner which is so young and has got zero customer. It was just basis of our technology, and a lot of Tableau customers started loving us. We said, okay, this shit works, right? And then we took the entire piece on top of all the BI tools. We are yet to go on SAP though, but so we have got like Power BI. We started supporting Click, and what I'm going to share right now is just going to make you think how actually enterprises think about all of these things. Now, once they started listening over LinkedIn, that okay, there is a technology.
Your website, you do work on digital boardroom because your website talks about digital boardroom.
Oh, we have our own digital boardroom actually. So we
Wow.
work on Google Alexas of the world, and the one thing also is like I'll finish. There are two questions. I'll finish this thing, which you asked just now. So what we also did, I was anyways very angry. Literally angry is the word with Alexa. Though I'm happy that I'm doing what I'm doing. doing because Alexa, I made a pact that I'm going to change the natural language model which Alexa and the Google Assistant uses, just to make sure that you don't need to fall through the same crack to which I fell. So in today's version of Alpha, you can actually change their natural language model with Alpha's natural language model. And I give you my own personal promise. Whenever you ask a question, by the time it is related to your business, it will always give you an answer and will never tell you that I don't understand this, because this is how the experience was crafted. But coming back, that story which you're finishing, that is pretty interesting. So I realized I built a full stack solution, but enterprises, I was not very popular because enterprises were already using the BI tools in the world. And then when I moved on the BI side, I became very popular, and people like you all started having a look at the demo and they said, wow, this works. But the funny thing happened. It is so funny, and we were so amazed after this fun thing. Take a guess what could have happened after enterprise have seen this thing working on top of Tableau. In the demo for 30 to 45 minutes, in all our contracts which we won, right? People told me, hey Saurabh, is Tableau necessary for this to work? I said, I can try and take it out. It's like, it would be really great if we don't need Tableau at all, and this can work all on its own. Now, if you see the evolution of a startup, I built the same product an year ago. Nobody used it because we were not working on top of, or nobody knew about it. But as soon as we told the world that we work on top of it, world got to know about us. And when they saw the demo, they said they want the older thing back. None of our customers uses Alpha on top of these BI tools. All their own, they said, hey, I don't want to use any Tableau. I don't want to use any Power BI. I want this to be an independent experience for the end business users, because I think this is cool over there. And one last thing, just to sum it up, right? So what Alpha is today is Alpha is just like a Twilio service, a natural language Twilio service on data, which everybody in the world, if you want to build a natural language on data, you can use our service, which will just be less than 5 lines, and you can embed this functionality into anything in the world. So what we are now working across is we are working towards making this entire Alpha service go free. We want the entire world to be able to use the Alpha service for free in Excel, in web applications, Slack, WhatsApp, Line, wherever they want to do it. We want to see what world can build with this service. Like, I am trying to give away a self-driving technology for free to everybody in the world so that they can try and build beautiful self-driving cars. That is where we are going with all this thing.
Okay, Mark, any questions?
Directly on the last part. So, what's your revenue model going to be after that?
Sorry?
It's great to give things away.
Revenue model.
Revenue model is going to be after that.
So, Mark, before I talk about the revenue model, there is something very, very interesting. So, the one question which a startup needs to ask, Mark, is, are they a people company or a business company, or they are a technology company? What is a business company? A typical example of a business company where more than 50% of their team is a sales team. So immaterial of the technology, sales teams has pushed this thing into enterprise and they're able to make it work. And to get those people on board, you will require a lot of money. It's a very linear cycle. So if you want to build a 100 million ARR company, the minimum time it will take is 7 years. I'm talking about the latest in the market. And a good amount of time is 7 to 10 years to make a 100 million ARR company. And you have to have a lot of people in it, a lot of sales cycles, 12 to 18 months, typical enterprise. We said, I want to challenge this and I want to change this. So if I talk about a technology company can make $100 million ARR in less than 3 to 4 years, 5 years by max. Okay. And the cool part is they don't require people to build it. So what if the technology company has got the technology and virality in it? Okay, that means lot many people in the world are using this technology. That way you'll start growing very, very fast, super, super fast. And So we realize that if we go and build this thing into a way where the technology can become the number one most powerful technology. Now let's try and understand who in this world is actually asking business question and who is answering it. For AI to develop more, you need to have a whole bunch of business questions, isn't it? If nobody ever asked me what is my name and what is my height, I will never get to know that people are interested in asking height. And if I don't know that Shelley is actually entering birth dates and asking about age. So in the initial 18 months of traction, what we are saying is if we can grow up to 1 million users, since it is free in 18 months, I will be able to attain those million users much faster. And the corpus of questions which I would have, they will be close to a 10 million questions a month. So that means it becomes a technology which is like Google, right? Google of business data. More and more people have used it in last 18 months, and it has become that point in time. If you go beyond a certain threshold, so let us say if you're a business, then you end up paying, like how open source works. And if you're an enterprise using it, then you end up paying. And if you're a single user, I have given you a threshold of say 1,000 queries, 10,000 queries for right now. We are also funded by Microsoft credits, close to $120,000. So we have got a lot of infrastructures to play around, right? So we are utilizing those things to actually build it. And while I'm speaking with you, we are talking with, say, customers like NASA of the world. Okay, like normally I haven't used this name in long, but that is the kind of businesses who are already using it. We are close to $500 million in revenue already. So there are business users who are still paying, but I'm still working on an Excel version of the technology because we command close to 1 million views on LinkedIn alone every month, Mark. And we realize people are crazy to try this out, and we have given it in the hands of some of the Alpha AI fellows who use this technology to build a lot of dashboards actually. So revenue models more around building and ensuring get the technology right, because if in a technology technology right, there will be no point there will be no point actually selling it. So 18 months is more like our pseudo period where we will make some revenue. Like I'm hoping to do a 10 million ARR there. And after that, based on the traction which we have in terms of the freemium model, which has made the engine very, very strong. Because if you see any other model, people have to pay a lot of money to use it. And the enterprise sales cycle itself is 18 months. So if you have to fight me, first you have to sell it, and you have to go through those firewalls and in IT security and procurement and everything. Shelly, and you all know, right? It is a 1 year battle, specifically with the kind of, or probably Microsoft picks us out. We are already, they have supported us a lot in the journey. We are part of a NASCOM Deep Tech Club, one of the top 50 emerged companies in India, right, in deep technology. We became so popular that we showcased one of the top 4 startup on a national AI event. Okay, so with all of these things, I think one of the big boys like say Google or Microsoft, who has a share of this market, 800 million users, what Microsoft has, and Google has got 140 million. If the technology can work for 1 million, choices. Who wants to take 1 million technology and scale it to 800 million users, or 1 million to 140? So it is the battle between them. I am just having fun while building it with everybody and the community. And very big thanks to my Alpha AI fellows, literally.
I can imagine you're having fun. It sounds like fun to me. So I think what's really important here also for our viewers is um, somewhere in the journey you and your founders made a decision, a pricing model decision to go freemium premium, to basically build up solidity and strength in the engine by the freemium use, because you had the test users of the mass and continuously improving the product. That's a bold strategy, because if you're not fast enough, if you don't scale fast enough, if you don't get adoption fast enough, right? Somebody else is going to figure it out and might, even with a lesser product, be faster. So the next question is a logical one. What did you do to make noise so people know, like, oh, there's a premium product there. Maybe I should try it. Right? Because every day I get like a bazillion LinkedIn's and tweets and DMs. They say, "Oh, I have a real good product. You should look at it." I'm like, dude, I have life, right? So, how did you get that attention when you started? When you started Curve? Because I think that's, if you want to share that, I think that's a very interesting story for people.
Oh, that is like say, I think this that will be Preksha's story, Mark, my co-founder, because she is the muscle man, I would say, right, who actually built the entire virality in the product. But Shelly, can you share my screen? Probably, I'll make people see it.
Okay.
So, Mark, what? Let me tell you how it all started and where we are. So, we realized that people. I'll tell you one thing. Once you see this piece, then you will. You remember in this line, what I'm saying is people want to access data, no IT help, existing, easier, faster way. But in the end, I'm saying make them a hero. At the end of the day, in your office, if you've achieved something with a lot of hard work, and you think, oh my God, thank God it's over. That is one expression which is very common in enterprise, right? I am saying if somebody asks some information from anyone and Mark says, oh wow, let me do it, because while I do it, I get to learn few more things about it and it takes less time. And if I feel like a hero, that is where I considered the job done as alpha. So when we were able to make a lot of people heroes, okay, on LinkedIn, not us. If we say I am hero, it's not going to fly more. If I am able to ensure that all my fellows have become hero, they have received in their life what they would like to do. I am going to share my screen and let us see how many people believe it. So if you try and see, let me share one of the things which is very, very close and super, that was mind blowing for us. I'm just going to, so you see something on your screen. First question first, Mark. Do you think this is built in Excel or this is any BI tool?
I, the only reason why I would know it would be built in Excel because Excel's on the background. But from the graphs, this is not your traditional Excel visualization.
So I'm going to just play this thing for just 5 seconds. So let us see what is happening here, and let us see. So see, not only it is built in Excel, you see. So what I'm showing is nobody knew that this can be done. And of course, you can go on YouTube, find ways to do it. But what you also felt is while while people started doing these things using alpha, they were full of joy, right? Because of course they were learning while they are doing this thing. So when I click on my notifications, in few months ago, only I was the guy doing it, right? Or Preksha was the one doing it. But now if you see people who are talking about, let us say any of them, right? So if I click on any of these, I never thought I could predict stocks. Yes, you heard it right. I predicted using Monte Carlo. And all of these things are activities which made simple people a hero. So whenever you build a technology which will make people a hero, it's always going to amaze everyone. Not only themselves, but like everybody else. So in our community, we figured out if we can identify those heroic moments in people's life, right? And easier way for them to achieve it. And that is where we started knowing about it. And if you try and read any of those things, like let me one, I'm just going to share one thing. You will love it. This is yesterday happened with one of our batches, I believe. One second. I am going to put it, share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So it says like, good evening. I want to share one good news today. I have been offered a full-time job of a data scientist at Green Tech, and I've accepted the offer. Alpha AI is kind of lucky for me. In the first week, I got a part-time offer. In the second week, I got a first client, and the third week, this is my first job. And still, they are dedicated to do the program. I will try my best to deliver high quality projects. So what I'm saying is we work with people in 6 different countries, Mark, today, who are the backbone of what Alpha is as Alpha. So in a startup, we had this agility and time to figure out that how do we empower people. We were able to make that experiment, specifically Preksha, who did the experiment, and all our batch fellows and all. So if you want to create a virality in your product, right? If you can give it in the hands of people somehow and they can try it out, that is where the main hero thing comes in. At the end of the day, if I can help you becoming a hero, you are bound to take the technology and take it with you everywhere you go.
Okay.
Does that helps you with the question answer?
Well, that's a pretty clear answer to the question. And I first is I want to applaud you for the creativity using LinkedIn and campaigning like that. I do have a follow-up questions. Which languages are you doing
Yeah.
after? What languages are
Which
you going to?
language?
Yes.
So the natural language, in what all languages it work? That is what you mean? Okay.
Yep.
So currently we support more than 28 languages, Mark. And the way the natural language has been built, it is very easy for us to add a language. Supporting languages like Hindi, though nobody uses Hindi, it's just like for fun and my mother tongue, right? We just love, right? Hindi. So that's what we use Hindi. We have got a support of Japanese at the same time. Very recently, we started building for Thai. We got a normally when we talk about Thailand in Indian context, we think of Thailand as a tourist destination. That's about it. And when I got a call from one of the CIOs of a very large consumer goods company, I was very amazed. And he said, "Hey, Saurabh, we'd like to use this thing, but we'd like to make it in Thai." And that was the latest challenge what we have taken upon. So, but apart from them, we have got 6 variants of English. So you can speak the question in English, and Indian English, US English, Australian English, and 2 more English.
Many Englishes then.
So that's pretty
Yeah, it's
impressive.
like how people speak.
That's very impressive. And that's automatically not only the languages of speaking, but also the language of parsing the data when you go through it.
Correct.
Correct. Wow. That's
Right. So what we have done is we have created our. I'll just add. So how we have built the entire piece is we have built the piece in a way where it is language independent. Okay. So rather than working with the translations of different English, what we did is we took the whatever language you want to target and convert everything into something we call pseudo English. Okay, so internally the system is working on a pseudo English, right, which is how your data is stored. So no immaterial of what language you ask question, but the question is answered in the language in which data is existing. So making that clear cut distinction between of identifying the language separately from the NLP helped us create a very cleaner and scalable system. So we
yeah.
are not like a translation company. It's just a very simple language pack which we use. By the way, not too many people know. So in my early days, 20 years ago, I was very like a proponent of promoting Indic languages and Unicode. In those times, 1998, when Unicode was launched, Unicode has got that kind of functionality that without even knowing the language, you can convert any language to any other language. It's a simple logic of less than 200 lines, which people use it. So it's just like Alpha. We have not tested the entire piece, but we were able to do it for like 25 plus languages right now.
Okay. Mark, any other question or should we move on?
I think we should move on. We're getting questions
Okay.
in on the board as well, I noticed.
Yeah. So before I go to the audience question and answer, Saurabh, do you have any questions for us?
Okay, so I've got a question for you, Shalin, then I have a question for you, Mark. And since Shalin is the host, I'm going to ask him after this. First, the arrow is for you. Okay, so Mark, what you saw is that here is a startup who is building an enterprise product, but they are not selling it in an enterprise way. Okay, of course I have a choice of going through that 12 to 18 month sales cycle, but I said I'm not going to take that thing. I'm going to go with a freemium model so that I have a higher adoption. And the good part is my dilemma is that I have got good customers who are flocking, okay, all inbound, right, who want to try out alpha, but it takes a lot of time for me to go ahead and do implementations with them. But with my freemium world, I have to just give them access and I don't even talk to them once. So which way you think is advisable for a startup like us to work in next 18 months? Should we go ahead and keep focusing on building revenue, like just ringing our cash registers, maybe make a $2 million in 2 years, or should we focus more upon giving this in the hand of millions of people, but without any cash register ring? So cash register ring or no ring, only people.
Right.
And if
Well,
you were
so,
the founder, then sorry, one second. Sorry, let me add a twist. If you become a co-founder in a company like this, let's say you are at an SAP, which is a much big thing. You come from IBM. Let's say you work with us as a co-founder, and now the dilemma for you is you come from a very big, large enterprise background, and now you're working with enterprise heads like us. Sorry, the startup guys like us. What would you recommend as a strategy? Going with a cash register ring because you are very fluent in that. You can make a sale like in a drop of your hat, or the community-based non-dollar thing.
yeah, I think it's a really important question. First is one of the pleasures that I have is by being either an angel, a board advisor, or coach of several startups. And the first is, of course, how much money do you have to burn? Like, do you have investors, backers, etc., that give you like a 2-3 years time frame to work on the freemium model? Or are you forced by investors that say cash now, cash now, cash now, because they want to rapidly cash in themselves or IPO you? Once you find investors or angels or funding that fits the model of the longer term, which is risky, but also high risk, high reward. And I take MongoDB as an example. Their stock, I think they went for like, what was it, 36 to the stock. A few weeks ago, they topped 200. It's a very good example of a company that had a technology proposition, then did a premium freemium model, exactly as you say, invested heavily in added business value for their community. So instead of making Mongo accessible just by their normal JSON accepted language, they supported the community to come with their own extension and to have 19 ways, including SQL, to access a non-SQL database, and made some industry packages for the top industry like finance and retail on top of it. And they kept freemium premium. By doing that, they got within 1.5 years around 1 million active developers and millions of app developers, right? But with active developers, I mean in an enterprise situation, and app developers that embracing it for the kachings sooner or later. Because there comes a moment, as you say, you're going over the freemium threshold, and there comes a moment you need production level support, especially when it becomes business critical or analytics critical. So I'm definitely a fan of your model, and I think knowing my stuff, you knew that when you asked that question. So the freemium, no, because the point is, if you're not in Silicon Valley and if you're not directly connected with the larger consulting companies, the Deloittes, the Accentures of this world, if you're not directly in partnership with one of the larger technology companies, then as a startup, building up an enterprise business is a long patience game. So you either need to partner and let your partner scale you up, or you need to do a freemium premium where you aggressively get either developers or citizen data scientists or end consumers of your product. Now, the easier you make it to plug you in, the better. Now, the question I always have is, when you make such an easy thing, how does it deal with my firewall, right? I mean, it's easy to have a plugin, for instance, in Excel. But still, a lot of enterprises says, no, you will not use this plugin. I don't care if it's even in the official Microsoft store. I don't care even if it's not Microsoft. Like the best example is Microsoft has a translate plugin for Word. Which enterprise doesn't want to use it? And then most companies say, oh, no. All our secret documents are going to Word. You cannot use that translate plugin for Microsoft. Is it even if the data stays here? And then what these people do, they go to Google and they cut and paste it. So the point is, what is your strategy, your story to deal with it, right? And I don't have the answer for it, and I know you're struggling with that, but that is the hardest. It is, how do you make sure that they understand that even if you give an API, that it does parsing, but you don't store their data. Even if you use it, how do you deal with the IT compliance people ASAP? I think that is your challenge in a freemium premium model. That's the better you articulate it, the more you help your end users to educate their IT people. Say, no, this is a really good stuff, etc. The more you make it easier, callable, SSL certified API, those kind of things, have encrypted in motion and in rest processing and those kind of things behind it, the safer IT professionals start reading.
Okay.
So, yeah.
One follow-up question on this thing. And thanks a lot, Mark. I think I've taken that notes on you identified it really correctly. So in order to make a good freemium premium model, the friction has to be removed, right? One of the biggest friction, which Shally would also agree, is the IT compliance and what you're saying absolutely right is if we are able to articulate that particular piece, that will help us the adoption. And the follow-up question with this thing, Mark, is what is the other company which comes to your mind who has done something similar? Not in like natural language, what I mean is who has removed this friction for the enterprise, where IT questioned, hey, X company, you are doing this thing, and that company was able to remove it. Is there any company which comes to your mind?
So 3 years ago, when we had another technology world, I would have said Mongo. I took this as an example there. I still find their model is interesting. By the way, they still need to really make that profit. Their IPO and their current stock rate is a promised price, right? But without being in trouble with the SEC, I would say what the analysts would call the hope to be acquired soon. And that's a little bit my concern. When you do a strategy, how do you make sure that your valuation, especially if you go IPO'd, isn't suffering under the incredible hope to be acquired, etc.? Because there is a risk the moment you get acquired that you lose a lot of the platform. If one big player acquires you, the other players will be uncomfortable. If SAP acquires you, the people at Salesforce and Tableau would be nervous. If Salesforce acquires you, the people at SAP would get nervous because, oh, whoa, I'm going to use my competitor's plugin. If Microsoft acquires you, the Salesforce, Oracle, and SAPs would be less nervous because it's a trusted partner, right? So I think the most important kind of things that you see is what enterprises see as a trusted partner. So the examples are either very high level, like how Microsoft started with the data integration platform, coming with plugins, etc. That's an enterprise approach, but still a freemium model. Um, the other part, we see how companies like Dropbox and Box.net wedge themselves into companies. Also, a freemium premium model for consumers, but not for enterprises anymore. I think the best example is still Slack, how Slack totally got embedded in a lot of technology, but also project working infrastructure the last years. It's from the outside, it is cloud-based, yet it totally seamlessly integrated. And the most important thing they did for the premium models is they actually supported your SSO as an enterprise. So I can directly log in on Zoom or in Slack with my SAP user. It is one SAP subscription. I go to the internal IT ordering site and I can do it. So there comes a moment that you go from individual users to an enterprise contract. And in that enterprise contract, you need to make the ordering via the internal system of that license as easy as possible. In other words, you tell an enterprise, this is how I want to have the order, and I directly add the license in nanoseconds for you. So the automatic license additions and your invoicing, that's going to be the most important backbone to grow in such premium models. And the reason I take Slack and Zoom and Dropbox and Box.net is that they figured that out rapidly. Because if you can't do a single sign-on in an enterprise, your system is going to be much harder to get their license sold, because then you get individual, can I please procure this license for this? It's not like, hey, it's in the internal company store. I press the button, there it is. Log in with my SAP, there it is. Use it now, right? That's the thing. So
Amazing. So one of the things, not many people know. So I was a part of Hotmail single sign-on team also, right? That is what Shally was saying. So single sign-on is where Microsoft had the problem that they built this single sign-on and they had a lot of partners like Accentures and SAPs and everybody of the world, and they used to have products and they wanted to log on Microsoft platform to do few things, and then they were building their own platform. So that is where the concept of single sign-on came in. I'm talking about like 17, 18 years ago, Mark, where Microsoft
yeah,
realized that a lot of people who have already an account on Hotmail can go ahead and build it. But so that is my exposure. But I think few points which I'll just summarize. So you're saying like giving more, say, an internal auditing feature and learning from the likes of Slack and Zoom, how they got in that. And I especially like the example of Power BI, because Power BI, for everybody to know, you cannot run on premise. It has to be always. And I also like how Microsoft has built that bridge. It has started giving filters here and there, add-ons here and there, and now they got Power BI, which is so sticky, so people got stuck with it now. So thank you for that. And now one of the most interesting questions to Shelly. Shelly, it is going to blow your mind when I'm going to ask this question. And believe me, and you have to share your secrets like that. So Shelly has not seen this coming, Mark, and I've not WhatsApped him the question before for everybody to know. And people who are right now, if there are very few people, right away there are 21 people, the luckiest people in the world who are going to get through that secret. And whether Shelly choose to answer. So Shelly, tell me this thing. How in this whole world automatically you only get the top 5 people in the industry every time on your shows? How you are able to do this thing? Attracting the top enterprises, top bosses to come and give away their precious an hour or two. Like somebody at Mark level, I'm very sure if I reach out to him or him, like he will be super busy. He will never wake up early in this morning, right, to pick up my call and talk to me. And here he was talking to me all 20 minutes. And I was thinking, how you do this magic? And you have to tell this thing so that I can learn from you and I can invite Mark and everybody like level.
Now I'll tell you, there is a it's very simple. You got to ask. Most of the people think that people will say no, but I'll tell you the truth. Almost everyone is so happy to help that if you ask them, they will agree. I have not seen one person. And with Mark, how it started. We just spoke. We didn't even speak. I just sent you an email. You said, "Yeah, good idea. Let's go."
Yeah.
And that's
So there's two things, right? I fully agree with Shelley. Hashtag dare to ask. Hashtag
Yeah.
dare to ask is the one-liner. It does help to have a credibility like Shelley has. And like Shelley and I have a trusted relationship. I mean, last time I was privately in Sydney, I made sure that, Shelley and I directly had a beer, because until the moment we only had been, Teams, Skype, before Zoom even doing that kind of stuff. If you don't have the credibility yourself, use a friend. Hashtag dares to ask a friend. And then you say like, hey, Shelley, I really want to talk with Bob. Could you do a LinkedIn introduction, right? So that's the other part, because the friends of my friends might be new friends. I mean, this is the whole social media buildup. Because I don't know about you, I get questions, but sometimes like, are you even real? I mean, are you a bot? Are you a fake? Are you my competitor trying to get something from me? Are you a failed headhunter? I mean, seriously, sometimes I get a picture and I'm like, this incredible, beautiful young woman has a very too shiny, polished LinkedIn profile. And then I take the picture, I do a reverse image search, and like, I knew you from the television series. However, you don't work at this IT company at the moment. Somebody's just using your profile, your picture, to basically get a conversation with me. And I'm like, yeah, block.
I told you.
Right. But the moment somebody comes, and I think ask for help, but be clear what you ask. If somebody says, hey, I'd like to get a job in AI, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, sap.com/jobs, right? I'm sorry, I don't have time for it. But if somebody very specifically said, I'm doing this, I'm working there, can you introduce me, can you do? I might either forward that to a person. I might still do sap.com/jobs because I don't know you. But I would be tickled, right? And like most executives, we do actually screen our personal social media. Now, having said that, I know I risk that tomorrow my LinkedIn is going to explode. But you need to ask, you need to have a trusted credibility check, preferably be an introduction via somebody that you know that knows that other person. Like just because Shelley and I are linked with Elon Musk doesn't really mean that I can send a message like, hey, Elon, how are you doing? By the way, could you spare 15 minutes for Saurabh, right? I think
Oh my God.
to Elon, and then
if I,
pretty good one.
if I was connected to Elon, I would say, well, come on my show. Join us.
No, my relationship with
I-
Musk was more like, I have a complaint about my Tesla, can't find a person to talk to. And magically he reacted back. So his assistant, I still don't know that. So.
Good stuff. Guys, let's very quickly get into the audience Q&A, because there are lots of people who are watching it just because they want to hear their answers to their questions. Today, I will not go through the good mornings and the highs of everyone. Hi, everyone. A blanket hi to everyone. Guys, if you've said good morning and hi to you, and thank you for watching. I'm really, really happy that you guys took time out to watch us, and hopefully you learned something, one thing or two from us. Let's get to the meaty questions. So the first question from Maheshwar Reddy, PR. Hi, Maheshwara. How are you? And he says, ETL and data cleaning processes, are they part of AI? Who wants to take that?
I can take it. I definitely want to hear Saurabh's answer on that. So the clean answer is no, but AI can be part of ETL and data cleansing. Actually, what I see is the more modern data integration tools are using either intelligent robotic processing, so AI to control how they do their workflow, how they split out and harmonize their work, or they use, for instance, machine learning components to make sure that they do the harmonization, the standardization, etc. in the extraction of data. Now, it gets more important when you work with streaming data, when you work with unstructured data. This is where we used to use big old Hadoop crunching machines, but people forget that a lot of big old Hadoop crunching machine already had the standard machine learning built in it. So all we have been doing is making it more sophisticated with easier accessible tools. And saying that, there are millions of banks in this world that still use ETL from 1992 to load their data warehouse.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Okay, very quickly, next one. I think you can answer this, Saurabh. How AI can, or so this is from Chirag. Sorry, I'll just quickly run through the question. Hi, Chirag. How are you? How AI can be used for MSMEs in India?
So, thanks, Chirag, for the question, and it is very, very interesting space. And believe me, while I'm going to answer this question, I have thought a lot about this answer and what is going to be the future. Let me take an example of an SME. You're a restaurant owner who does only 20 orders a day, hardly 20 orders, which is like by any means is not a very big delivery business. Now, for a restaurant owner doing 20 orders a day on an average price, say $10 to $20 per order, it is hardly a $200 a day business. At the end of the day, it is $5,000 to $6,000 worth total business. So that business is so small. Now, to do this business, for every business, they buy raw material. So for a $5,000 business, the total raw material might be only $4,000. Correct? Now, how can AI change the entire business? Let me take an example. If I, as a small business, I have got zero technology knowledge, I might be using some billing. One of the good things will be very interesting for me early in the morning every day, 9 a.m., if the system can tell me what is new happening in my business which I don't know about. Like I was delivering order in 3 areas in around my restaurant. Now suddenly last week I got order from one more area, which I will not be aware of because I am not a data pro person. But what if the AI can find this blind spot and tell you that? That is one thing AI can help. Point number two, I am going to make a purchase of my $1,000 out of which I'm going to buy some cheese, which will be just say $20 cheese. That's about it, right? And but the retailer has given me an offer if I buy a $30 worth of cheese, which will be double than the $20. That means he's giving me 25% discount on cheese, right? $40 cheese in $30. So I can ask AI, should I buy this $30 cheese offer? And AI can tell, considering your usage of cheese, you can maximum use cheese worth $25, not of $30 or $40. So that $15 cheese is anyway going to go waste because of the date limits or the expiry on it. That is one. So it is going to go for waste. Second, even if you want to buy it, it will impact the cost of your entire month by $15, and you might lose that more orders because of that, because you don't have space to store it. So these are few ways in future AI might be impacting us. And this was a very specific example I gave because a lot of people speak very broadly about it. So it doesn't get very clear that what kind of decision making can happen. So in future, if AI was able to tell me what new stores, now if I can ask AI of, hey, can you tell me what are the new areas? Because AI has been watching your business for 6 months and AI is aware of the demographics. And you can ask AI, which are the new areas I can give away my flyers on? No digital, just the simple flyers. So these are the kind of questions, and more and more examples will come up, right? This is my humble investment of time. I try to figure out how it can help, but that is what I see as the future. Hope this answers your question.
Okay. Next question from Chirag itself, and that's for Mark. Mark, how AI can be used in the field of HR? And I think we're doing that quite a bit in SAP, so you may want to share a few stories around.
So it starts with take the whole value chain of HR, right? It starts actually first with recruitment. We see AI being used in sifting through resumes. Now we have to be very careful. We all know the example of Amazon that went a little bit too much overboard and couldn't retrain their system. But nevertheless, companies have already been using non-AIs, keyword search mechanism, to sort rapidly to, like, do you have a higher education? Do you have this? Do you have this? Check, 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 put them out. Which is always sad, because somebody who might be brilliant, a brilliant match, but just for whatever reason chose the wrong words to describe themselves, is out, right? This is again why you call a friend. So then you get the second part, and that is the whole salary payment bonus processing. If you're a salesperson and you get 3 times reorg, which a typical corporate is doing nowadays 3 times a year, you might actually 3 times change territory, clients, product, etc., and your bonus or commission calculation totally changes, even when halfway the year. Now, then you can either have a 9-month process to recalculate the bonuses, so you get just bonus basically 9 months later, or you actually have an AI-powered solution. So in solutions like SuccessFactors and SAP, we go one part further. We go to the education, the development, and the goal and objective setting in that. Now, imagine that you connect that for a field engineer basically with this operational things. My goal is to serve so many clients a year. Bang, here are all the facts. These are the clients you have served. Bang, this is the amount of hours you spend in average repair. Bang, this is your customer satisfaction. That makes, for me as an employee, it much easier to have a discussion with my direct supervising report, like, these are the hard facts of what I did. Instead of, I have to now make the spreadsheet. My boss tells me, nah, that's not really how I perceive it, right? The discussion changes to a higher level. There's a risk in it, and that's basically that we start objectifying everything. And HR is about human resources, not about the human remains in a company. So we need to really focus on the human part. The best HR solution focus on offloading the admin in the process in order to have the humans have a better coaching and development kind of approach.
Okay, I must say one more thing here, just a comment, that the job of the human resources is to match the talent with the profile or the role that they're going to do. The problem which I see is they're matching the CVs, not the talent, which is a huge problem, and that is why you get wrong people for a wrong job. And at the end of the day, I've had this problem with analytics, and I say, you put wrong people to do analytics, and then they say analytics doesn't work, or in our case, it can turn around to be AI doesn't work, which has nothing to do with AI or analytics. It has to do with the people who are doing the job who are not supposed to do that job in the first place. Anyway, let's move on. We've got lots of questions to cover. Poonam Sood, a regular on our show, she says, how can we use AI for data analytics? She's on LinkedIn. Hi, Poonam. Who wants to go for it?
I think Saurabh just showed that.
Yeah. So let me take this thing quickly. So Poonam, whenever we are talking about AI and with anything X, AI for X or AI for Y, what we need to be understand and what we need to ensure is, if you don't know what problems you're solving, right, and what problems you want to solve, you should not use AI. Understand? AI is not a thing like, hey, this is Amazon forest. Can you tell me, right, what are the things which are interesting inside the forest? AI is not that deal. Okay, please take it out of your mind, right? So any blanket questions on AI doesn't work really well. Okay. Of course, Mark, I, and Shelly can answer them with few things, but that will be our idea of those questions. But if you ask me, hey, how many dinosaurs are there in that Amazon forest? Maybe that is where AI can come in, right? Because the questions are specific. So by the time you're asking specific questions in data analytics, you should be able to use AI. And if you're asking very blanket question, how's my business doing, might not be the right question. So hope I'm able to answer this broader question.
Okay. Next comment is from Chirag. Chirag says, finally happy to see the smile in Mark, sir. Thank you, just on the light mode. Mark, you're not smiling today. You're very tense for some reason. That's what the audience is saying.
Clearly, I was grumpy in the beginning of the show. You know, my coffee hadn't kicked in.
Brajesh Manchanda, hi Brajesh, how are you? Says, can we use AI in data integration projects with SAP? Mark?
Yes, yes. We have a phenomenal SAP product, which is called SAP Data Intelligence. And the great thing is, in the words of Saurabh, we have a try now or a freemium period of time with it. Basically, what you do is you take the result of your Anaconda, of your Jupyter notebook, or any kind of your data models that you've been creating. You can take a series of data sources, and you either run your model, manage your model, or you connect with SAP, either through data intelligence or directly to api.sap.com. So for those more technically excited, take api.sap.com, connects to any SAP part, safe, secured, encrypted, and again, during development, no cost. And for those that really like to go data science, data intelligence, thank you for this question. It was not prompted. I love to plug our product.
Okay. So there is a comment from Kalicharan Pichumani. He says, hi, MSME is the one who really get benefit out of AI due to advantages of low-cost automated decision-making system based on real data. Okay. There is a comment from Preksha. Preksha says, yes, that was a real dilemma. And I think that was around the voice man to voice. So Preksha, as I mentioned, Mark is the CMO for Alpha AI. She said, when I said that, how did you get voice man as the name, and what was the name of your female co-founder? And I think it was voice. So she's the voice. Okay. Chirag Vyas says, how AI can be useful in the field of higher education, especially in India. Saurabh, you going to have a comment on that?
See, probably one of the things what AI can do in higher education is, this is one of my pet ideas, right? I haven't started working on it and using our technology, but I will be very, very happy if somebody works on this. So today, I think one of the reports I saw, there are close to say 1 million data analysts which are required in US to fulfill a lot of positions. Now, for 1 million positions, there are say 10 million people across the world. Like on LinkedIn, if you search data analyst, I think there is close to 15 million responses which you get. Like those are the people who have data analysts as their job. Correct. So now what you will realize is a lot of people who are trying to get in the job, they are not prepared well, and they end up wasting the interviewer's time and their own time. Now they don't know whether I'm prepared well or not. So what they can do is imagine if you can take a mock interview of data science or say mock interview of being a data analyst, like how an interviewer would ask, and if I can do that dry run, right? Uh, if we can do that dry run, because of the AI is already aware, AI can act like an interviewer. Maybe it can prepare me for my interview really well, and it doesn't cost me much, and I don't need to experience 10 times failure. So every time you go for a mock test, it can ask you 10 questions and rate you accordingly, and you can check your improvement. So that means when you go for your real interview, the chances are that AI has groomed you well, and you will be able to do well. One idea at a time.
Okay. No idea is a bad idea. All ideas are good ideas. Mark, you want to say something or move on?
Yeah, so I see 3 cases that are working, especially in the US and some Western European higher education. There's 3, everything comes in free with me. So there are 3 angles. One is institutional, second is student support, the third is instructional. So we see, especially with recruiters, they call this the summer melt of admission. When the admission office is over, done right, there's a lot of frequent asked questions, screening of documents, what is missing. And when you're an admissions officer and you actually are missing something that should have been in the admission paper, the sooner you can go back to the student and say, hey, you forgot something, hey, this is incomplete, hey, we have questions about it, or sorry, your SATs are too low, you don't qualify. the more you actually take your pile away and you give that student, that applying student, time back. So recruiting and admission is a really good example. Second is student support. Think about the guidance in financial aid, think about early warning systems, but also think about instructional, right? Teaching assistants are basically doing the grunt work for professors, and they get 80% of the things that they get what I call freaking ask questions. So Georgia Tech, doing honor to their name, right, used AI, for instance, called Jill, that actually continuously spots like, hey, what's a repeating question? What's an answer a TA gave? When 5 or 6 of the answer are consistent, let's directly give that back to the person who asked that. So we offload the instructor. So we see both AI in the process that supports the student, that runs the institution and the instruction, but we also see AI, of course, as Saurabh said, as a skill, right, that slowly is taught and interacted by the student. It's going to be a little bit like IT. 30 years ago, IT was a separate profession where you learned coding, and now IT is part of every educational course you're going to get. If you don't do PowerPoint, you don't do Excel, it's pretty hard to graduate from university nowadays.
Okay. Next one from Rebecca McNish. She says, no Tableau, wow, Excel only. How can you ensure that execs don't see this as moving backwards?
Wow.
By the way,
So let Mark do the exec part first, then I'll add my comments. Go ahead, Mark.
So most executives really don't care what tool's being used as long as the job is being done. That's what it starts. The problem is, exactly as the example of Tableau that Saurabh gave, when you're that specific executive that just signed a $40 million bill for a contract with a tooling, and then some obnoxious startup with an Indian bloke says, oh, we can do this for much less. Even when that Indian bloke is a co-founder of Alpha.ai and is actually right, you have to admit that you just wasted a shitload of money to buy and deploy a product, right? Most people will go in denial. It takes a very mature executive to say, yeah, you know what? Maybe that was not the right decision. Or maybe we can integrate it. Or maybe we'll wait till they integrate with our product. So the most important for an executive is still, I don't care for problems. I care for solutions. I care for how it works. The concern, as I said in the beginning, that most executives have been educated in, though, is the one version of the truth problem with Excel. Once data get out of a data source or data warehouse, it's in one Excel that Excel goes around, and 20 people have 40 versions. As I said, Excel is like 2 rabbits. Today you have 2 spreadsheets, tomorrow you have 43. So the biggest concern isn't the Excel itself, but connecting it to a backbone that has that one version of the truth data. That is where the concern is. And I think that's a great seg to Saurabh there.
So
I'll add to it, Rebecca. One of the key points when we were building the technology, how does an executive behave? So I've spoken to close to 1,000 execs in last 16 to 18 months, and I'll tell you, no exec in the world loves to be taught. Okay, they don't like to be taught. They don't like to be preached. They don't like to hear and tell them what to be done. Now, this opens up a very unique opportunity for companies like us. If somehow I can drive you to a point, right, where you can decide, hey, this is the right thing to do. So what we learned in our journey, we never took Tableau out. Though nobody uses Tableau there, but we never took Tableau out. We show this to the exec with the Tableau in place. And after the exec spends 15 minutes watching the demo, and it occurs to exec mind all on its own, okay, that, hey, what about if I don't have Tableau? It's his idea versus mine. So by the time it is his idea, it is all good. So if you are designing a solution where exec can understand these things all by his own, that is the trick here. Like, that is how the exec has to feel. And if the exec doesn't understand all by his own, you can never drive him by telling, if I go walk to a $1 billion Fortune 2000 company and say I'm sitting with Mark, and I tell, hey Mark, whatever you did, it was shit. and hey, you are going to go, Mark. The immediate question from Mark will be, I don't want to go backward. Okay, so that way I'll get zero deal, and nobody will ever see alpha in that company. So this is I learned by talking to them. Never teach them, never tell them anything, show them. And these guys are, you don't become an exec just because you have a fancy degree or some name. You become an exec because you're worth it over there. And these guys are super smart over there. So you leave it up to them. They can see everything very clearly over there. So I think just present it, don't
I want
drive
to
a
add
point home, they will take it.
I want to add something
Yes.
here. Not add, tell you a story. Actually, I was working for a consulting company, and we landed up working for this. Got a contract for this particular large corporate, and I was hired or contracted by the business to do a particular job. And the head of IT or CIO was all Oracle, and I didn't use any piece of Oracle to save the company around about $1 billion. So she got upset. She got upset because none of her technology was used. So she started saying one rogue Shalendra sitting in a corner is doing all this stuff and not engaging with IT. Why is that and how is that? That also happens. But that's because the value that you bring into the table, and that changes a lot of things. Okay. Next question, very quickly. Dr. Vijay Kumar says, Saurabh, good man, sharing, caring, economy, DNA helps millennial minds to progress. That's a comment for you, Saurabh. Thank you. Dr. Vijay.
Thank you, Vijay.
Dr. Vijay says, Saurabh, did you develop any healthcare models unloading cognitive overload? I don't know what that means, though. Unloading cognitive overload, last 4 words.
Probably, probably what he might be trying to understand is like some of the cognitive abilities on healthcare, and I think Mark is a better person which to answer this. Mark, why don't you share something around healthcare models, and because these are very complex problems, very data heavy problems, like DNAs of someone, like though it is interesting, like from my own perspective and for everybody else. Anything
So,
you have noticed or any startups?
well, the hardest is that any healthcare model needs to be trained, supervised trained. You can't just do deep learning only, because you are talking about an application of a model that will have, with the exception of the healthcare insurance, that will have an impact on humans' life. The second is that there are two kinds of source data. There are source data that are medical training data, like what a university does, clinical trials, etc. And the complexity is the different hospitals. We have seen situations that the way how notes are made in EMRs, patient records, and how hospitals have their system set up are, by the approach that doctors and hospitals take, are so different that you could have the same algorithm, but applying on somebody else's medical records, it would give another outcome. Not necessarily the outcome it should have given, but just because the way how a method or how wording has been done. One of the sad jokes that I make is that there are two countries that have almost the same language, like it's like British English and American English, right? In this case, it's Flemish and Dutch. And the abbreviation for right leg and left leg are swapped. So if you get a doctor that is, let's say you bring a doctor from one country to the other, you say, okay, we're going to operate on the abbreviation right leg or left leg, right? That human being directly think, oh wait, I'm in other country now, need to pay attention that I take the right leg or the left leg, the correct leg. Machine learning isn't always that flexible until you have corrected it. So there's much more effort on supervised learning, much more extra trials, much more extra, and most of the applications work the best when they augment the medical doctor. So the medical doctor get the best of 5 and then say, how did you come to the answer? And the big difference is we have a lot of processes and businesses that just says, the guy's been running, the outcome is 42. Medical models have a different premise and need another approach in using the outcome. I think that's the most important of a healthcare model and the cognitive part.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does to me.
Yeah, I think we have a,
Okay, final
yeah, go
question,
ahead.
and we drop out. Sorry, and that is from Kalicharan Pichumani, and he says we are focusing on our domain expertise and hardware, especially on sensor side to build our Industry 4.0 IIoT solutions to the enterprises, especially into manufacturing. Can we go ahead on this? I don't know what that means. That was the question.
It sounds all textbook good to me. The
Mhm.
devil's in the details, of course. So, but on a high level, yeah, do discrete manufacturing solution based on Industry 4.0, work with existing IoT solutions that are future-proof, that are following standards, right, using domain expertise. On this level, it sounds great. The execution, that's the other 98%.
And I know you got
One
to
thing
drop out.
to add probably.
Yep,
Yep.
go
So
ahead.
one very quick comment for Kali. One of the very popular implementations which I have seen is whenever you're seeing a lot of data, it has become very difficult to go through and learn. It's like when you're driving a car, you can only look ahead, right? And of course, you've got mirrors which helps you see all across, but you can never beat a 360-degree camera of Tesla, no matter what you do in life as human. So that is exactly use case which you can use in most of the enterprises, right? The power to help you identify the blind spot is going to be one of the biggest offering which AI has for the world, especially in IoT where the data size is so huge. We are talking about petabytes of data coming out of those sensors. It is very difficult for any human to sift it through. So one of the very prominent use cases is like if AI can help me find those specific events, and there is a very good company called Eugene. Eugene is an company from Fractal Analytics, and they are the one who have dedicated a lot of resources on this. If you look out for Eugene, you can get to see what kind of stuff they are doing, and I think what they're doing is really cool.
Hey,
That's
perfect.
it.
Guys, thank you very much for your time. Before you go, I just want to ask you one question, one comment, and that is what one comment you want to leave the audience with that they can take away. Saurabh, you're the guest, so a comment, a praise or a comment from you.
So, comment from me is in next 10 years, or like before even next 10 years, in last 20 years, we have seen a lot of applications. And next year's, what is going to change is adding intelligence to those applications. So I am doing my bit of making the Excel piece intelligent. And I'm very sure everybody in whatever they are doing, in whatever technology, whatever world they are living in, if they can start thinking about intelligent, how do they make the existing things more intelligent, that is very interesting, and something which I always look forward to hear more ideas. So if any one of you have got any ideas around how do I make some existing piece very intelligent, I'm more than happy to collab on those projects with you. And thanks a lot, Mark, and Shelly. Very thanks to you for bringing Mark, right? And I getting an opportunity to interact with him firsthand. It was a very lovely, well spent time. It's just like I was having my tea on this side and Mark on coffee. I surely missed. I'm very sure like Shailendra should have sipped some juice as I saw him. It was a good. It's like we all are in a cafe. So thanks a lot for bringing this opportunity for us. Really, thank you,
It's
everyone.
it's fun, Saurabh, and I can't thank you for the kind words. I can't wait till we finally are post-COVID and we can actually have a decent tea and a meal together and talk about the meaning of life. But yeah, Shelley, to go to your questions to round up, I think today it really came out when they have a series of implementations done in a series of systems. How are you complementary, non-threatening, and easy, impluggable, adaptable for that ecosystem? If you come in and you want to be your own ecosystem, it's got to be an uphill battle. If you can actually plug in that ecosystem, take the fear away for the people that invested in that ecosystem, and have a really easy way to integrate. And we had a longer discussion about that, how Slack does it, how Saurabh does it with its API. Those are the moments to come in. Either you go in via all your partners, and you get the Deloitte, the Accentures, the EYs of this world, the IBM Business Consultancy, to do the heavy lifting, invest in you, and that. But the reality is, they're mostly opportunists. They won't do that until you have had this market share, and then they say, "Oh, this is interesting. Let's build around this." But then you already did the heavy work, and they're going to reap the benefits. So why do that directly? Bang, make it easy to integrate, and let them build a business on top of your integration, but you reap your benefits yourself. That would be my Enterprise Connect words of wisdom for the day. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Saurabh, for being here. It was a pleasure having both of you, and thank you. Let's get ahead without that now. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So guys, that was Mark and Saurabh Moody. I hope you had a great time listening to their thoughts and some interesting experiences and examples that they shared with us. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you there. I will be back next week, but before that, if you're watching this on Twitter, follow me. If you're watching it on LinkedIn, please follow me. If you're watching me on YouTube, then press the subscribe button and smash the bell icon. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.